Sunday, 6 o'clock, we host a little old show. It's called Dangerous Thoughts, where I rock the mic and Tyson talks the talk. We say what we want. It might give you a shock, but it's not shock radio. It's more than that. It's about people thinking and talking right back. We keep the mic open, everyone reports. We got different opinions on the floor. It's called Dangerous Thoughts, Sundays at 6 p.m. The subscript pirate might let you win to express your mind and get it off your chest. It's called Dangerous Thoughts. Tune in Sundays at 6.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. I'm your host, Manu Reme, and this is Dangerous Thoughts. This is your co-host, Tyson Strasberg. We are going to go deep down the rabbit hole tonight. We're going to talk about child sex trafficking. We're going to talk about QAnon, where it started, where it's going, how it's been doing, whether they're fighting a fight worth fighting, all of it. And we have well, this is why I picked the topic this week. You know, I've heard about this stuff through the grapevine, and I've been sort of, swayed by the mainstream media to just ignore it. And it's all baloney and it's all Hatui. And then I just started looking at it a bit closer. And the truth of the matter is child sex trafficking happens, and it's happening in a big way. Ask the FBI, give them a call. There are kids getting taken off the street. I think kids are getting taken and sold into these sex trafficking rings in third world countries and South America and other places, probably a little bit more than America, but it's happening here too. Kids go missing every day. Then they're used for the dark web. They're used for rich elites to have sex with. And the reason that I picked the topic is this movie came out that my friend produced. His name's Lucas Benkin. And he's one of the kindest, most beautiful Christian men I've ever met. And saying that, if you don't know my outlook on Christians, I have no problem with Christianity. But the mainstream Christian church, the Catholic Church, the Presbyterian Church, the mainstream churches and what they teach, I sometimes do have quite a problem with. Christians fundamentally themselves, a lot of time turn out to be wonderful people that actually follow that thou shalt not judge part of Jesus and the Bible's teachings. And Lucas Benkin is one of the sweetest person and most kind, honest, diligent, well-educated producers that I've met in my lifetime. And I've known him since I was 20. So he releases this movie, The Sound of Freedom, which our special guest, Chris Gilbert, another good friend of mine, had a hand in as well. And this movie just gets thumped on. I mean, they're just bashing the movie and saying, all sorts of terrible things about it. Like one of the investors in the movie, even though 6,000 people invested in this film, but one of the investors is a sex trafficker himself, which I'm like, yippity doo, right? They're saying that the movie's untrue, that this guy Tim Ballard that gave up his job, I think at the FBI. If I haven't even seen the movie, so listen to the expert tonight, folks, because you know me, I'm a moron. I'm the guy that defends Kevin Spacey and then he gets acquitted twice. I'm the guy that never knows what's going on. But the long story short is this movie got so much of a bashing that I had to wonder, like, why don't they want a movie out there about that shines a light on child sex trafficking, whether or not all the things they're saying about the film are true. Say a sex trafficker was at the heart of making this movie. Say that the entire story is made up and fake. Say all those things are true, which I'm not saying they are, but say they are. What does that matter when it comes to a movie that's actually exposing child sex trafficking and the problem that it is around the world? And I just wonder why this movie is getting so attacked. So I'd like to bring on our special guest, Chris Gilbert, that helped this movie get into theaters and move along the way to the extreme success that it has garnished. It stars Jim Caviezel. It's produced by a good friend of mine. It's called Sound of Freedom. I'm going to bring in our special guest, Chris Gilbert, and I'm going to show the trailer.
Our special guest is AFK, but we can show the trailer.
Okay, well, let's show the trailer then.
All right, Sound of Freedom.
I don't think I can do this job, Tim. As soon as I lay down, all I see are those kids' faces. How long you been doing this? 12 years. How do you do it?
It is the fastest growing international crime network that the world has ever seen. It has already passed the illegal arms trade, and soon it's going to pass the drug trade.
Señor Timoteo, tú rescatas niños, ¿verdad? Quizá puedas ayudarme a encontrar a mi hermana.
Imagine walking into a room right now, seeing an empty bed. What will we do?
We're Homeland Security. You know we can't go off rescuing kids in Colombia.
This job tears you to pieces. This is my one chance to put those pieces back together.
We're talking about extracting an 11-year-old girl from an army of rebels.
Not just her. I'm talking about rescuing hundreds of kids.
She could be a block down the road, or she could be in Moscow, Bangkok, LA.
Over 2 million children a year are being sucked into the deepest recesses of hell. If we do nothing, someday it's gonna reach the likes of you. What if this was your daughter?
Wherever I go, I find my way home.
If you would like to help us expose the horrible reality of human trafficking by bringing this true powerful story to the big screen, express interest now at angel.com/freedom.
Hey, and ignore that little last part at the end of the trailer. I because it's all over the big screens. And actually, you don't have to ignore that. You can go check it out for yourselves. But I checked in the Colorado area, and it was at like 7 different movie theaters. And this movie's made like over $200 million so far. People are flocking out to see it. So it's a very interesting thing to me. But as soon as we started talking about child sex trafficking, our special guest, Chris Gilbert's computer crashed. So we're putting on our tinfoil hats immediately to stop this program from going down too. So we're going to bring on Chris Gilbert and let him chat for a while. Hey, Chris. So as soon as we started talking about the topic of the show, your whole network goes down. And it looks like you're frozen now. Oh, hey, you're back. All right. You're a little cloudy, but I think they're already running interference.
Wow. Wow.
Tell me that's not creepy. And this guy has great Wi-Fi. He's got super Wi-Fi. He lives in outside of the Washington, D.C. area. The dude has Wi-Fi. And they're already running interference, stopping him from talking. So we got our tinfoil hats ready. Hey, Chris.
I think the tinfoil is interfering with the Wi-Fi.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hey. We got you. Hey, thanks.
Okay.
Welcome to the show. So we just showed the trailer. And
thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man. It looks like a great film. I wonder, I guess the first thing I want to ask you is, why do you think the media has got such a thing out for this movie? Why do they want to bash it so much?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. I think one of the biggest reasons is Jim himself is a controversial figure in Hollywood. You know, I'm sure everyone's seen at least one film with Jim in it.
Yeah.
And was
Passion of
one
the
where,
Christ, etc.
well, the one before that, and I totally drew a blank, but he did. Oh my God, I can't remember the name. It was back in the 90s.
What was it about?
Now I got to look it up.
I'm going to risk it. I'm going to risk taking the hat off. And if we get interference, the hats go right back on.
Yeah. I should know this off the top of my head.
Thank you, Monty. That's a little much.
Yeah. I can't believe I had a complete brain fart on this because I just watched it recently. And I will say an interesting part of it is it was the first film that Henry Cavill appeared in. He was 17 years old when he was in this film. It's where he got wrongly accused of treason and thrown in prison in the Chateau d'If in France for conspiring with Napoleon. And his fiancée was pregnant, and his best friend stole him, her, and his life and everything. I don't know why I can't remember the name of the film.
I vaguely remember this movie as well. I forget the name.
I feel like a total knucklehead for not knowing this. It's a great film.
There's a picture of you and Jim sitting. Actually, I think I've been to that particular hotel.
That's the Trump Hotel in DC.
Oh, that's
been renamed, but yeah.
So he's a controversial figure because why? Because he's a Christian.
Well,
because
he's very outspoken in his faith. As a Catholic, he's extremely pro-life. And after he did the Passion of the Christ, you know, Jim has told this story many times. And Mel even came to him and he said, "Are you sure you want to do this role? Because it could kill your career. This might be the only film you ever do." And the stories behind the making of the Passion itself is, you know, filled with conspiracy in and of itself. He even got a lot of flack and hesitance from the Catholic Church itself. There were a lot of people that didn't like Mel's vision. They didn't like the way he wanted to tell it. And this kind of will tie into what we talk about eventually about how much control goes on in the world: entertainment, politics, business, and religion, and they're all tied together. And so, you know, Jim did the film. He actually died twice on set while he was filming. He was struck by lightning while he was on the cross.
I remember that. Oh
wow. Yeah. So, and there's just a lot of weird, I wouldn't call it coincidences because I'm a Christian myself. I believe in God and, you know, who the person Jesus Christ is, you know, who his claims. But I don't want to make this a religious show, but the movie blew everybody's expectations out of the water because nobody would give Mel the money to finance the film. So he went around, raised it on his own, and that's when he started Icon Studios. I wasn't planning on talking about any of this, but I'll wrap it up. It was the highest independent grossing film in history until Deadpool came out. I think the film did $1.4 billion.
Oh my gosh.
It was a worldwide phenomenon.
I watched it in the theater. I went and saw it.
Yeah.
You know what I thought was so beautiful about that movie was that they actually went and talked to one of like the 6 people left on the earth that could speak or could close to speak Aramaic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then taught all the actors to actually speak in the original language of the time, which was, I thought, just mind-blowingly beautiful. And the dedication that those people put towards that movie was I
want to say modern Aramaic is still spoken by Chaldeans. At least some of the ones that I've met speak a newer form of Aramaic, but not the original 2,000 years ago Aramaic. Just like English was around 2,000 years ago, but we probably wouldn't recognize it today.
Ah, okay. Who's the Chaldean? Who's a Chaldean? Help me. What are Chaldean? Who are the Chaldeans?
Chaldeans are
ancient Iraq, right?
Yes,
ancient
yes.
Iraq,
Typically, so in the United States of America, we have a lot of Iraqi refugees, typically Christians, because Middle East is often Muslim dominated, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, etc. And so some of those Christians that are persecuted, they call themselves Chaldeans, come to the U.S. And I lived in El Cajon, which is the second largest influx of Chaldeans in the United States of America, Michigan being number one, El Cajon, California being number two. And some of the best people I've ever met in my life, kindest, sweetest. And what people, when they think Middle Eastern, they have this idea that all Middle Eastern people are Muslim. They all hate Americans. They're, these awful people. And
the propaganda
Chaldeans
from
I
the
met.
20-year
Oh yeah,
war on terrorism.
couldn't be further from the truth with the people that I met.
Okay.
Deep Christians.
So we were back on Jim Caviezel.
Yeah.
And
Count of Monte Cristo. That was the film.
Oh, that was
the
a
Count
great
of Monte
movie.
Cristo. Yeah,
great
excellent
movie.
film. And Jim has done 132 films in his career.
I want to say that
And-
Katie called that, and I missed it. I apologize, Katie.
There she is.
thank
The
you,
Count of
Katie.
Monte Cristo is
Thank
the movie.
you.
Great book too. Jeez.
Yeah. Oh, it's a classic. Absolutely classic. And
So Jim Caviezel does The Count of Monte Cristo, does the story of Jesus in the Bible, and now they cancel him. So what's the deal?
Well, this gets into some of the conspiracy, which is not quite so conspiratorial anymore. I sent you guys a clip of Angelina Jolie talking about some weird stuff that she was asked to do in Hollywood.
Do we have that clips, Casey?
Yeah, Casey has that clip.
Do you remember what we called it?
Ritual. Illuminati ritual.
Oh, Illuminati ritual.
All right.
That was at the bottom.
Let's play that, and we'll just keep on talking. Let's see it.
All right.
Okay, that's not the clip that I thought it was. I might have mislabeled something. But
Yeah,
basically,
still,
that is from Eyes Wide Shut.
Eyes Wide Shut. And how
Yeah.
weird that the best filmmaker in the history of filmmaking, Stanley Kubrick, decides to make his last film about the secret behind the scenes power elite.
Yeah.
I found that very strange, and used Nicole and Tom to tell that story. I just find it very strange that as he was on his way out, that was the story he decided to tell.
Yeah.
So wrong clip, but anyway.
It's okay. So I mean, it sets the stage for the way that I've come to see how the world operates. Everybody has a religion, and some people may not realize that they have a belief system, but they're religious about the way they live, what they do, what they think, the people who they befriend, and so on. And we know Christianity is a major religion in the world, and you have Islam and Judaism. Those are the three major Judaic religions. And then there's other belief systems that are actually older than that, and those are the ones that are tied into what we loosely like to call the Illuminati. If you go back in the Old Testament, there's something called the Divine Council. And in the Bible, there's these fallen angels that God created that challenge him and say, well, why do you get all the worship and the attention? Now, this is a loose paraphrase, but they said, we deserve a shot. Why does everybody have to serve you? And God basically says, okay, fine. If you think you can do better, you want to set yourself up as a god, go for it. And God and these other angels carve up the world territory with different groups and cultures and peoples, and they literally set up a religion, and human beings worship these celestial beings. A lot of these religions that we're aware of right now, and even archaeologists talk about this stuff all the time. you've heard of like Osiris and
I was just
Zeus
going to say
and,
that Osiris. And, yeah.
all those, they were, real entities. I believe that they're still alive and real, but their worship was established a long time ago, thousands of years ago. And the one that's most closely tied into this Illuminati religion, some people want to say it's Satanism or Luciferianism, whatever. It all ties into child sacrifice. And that deity is called Moloch. And it's even talked about in the Bible, where God, admonished his people, stop, giving your children into the fire. The two major religions that the Israelites strayed from or were tempted to turn their back on to God was Moloch and Ashtoreth. And Ashtoreth, I think the Zeus name is Aphrodite. So it was a religion of sex and sacrifice, and that never really stopped. A lot of it went underground, but nowadays it's kind of got a huge resurgence. And one of the things that Aphrodite was known for was having transgender prostitutes in the temple. So a lot of stuff that's happening today actually mirrors what was going on, spiritually and sexually, all those years ago.
Let me break you off for a second, because I am not a huge fan of this guy. I was 15 years ago when he went to what's called the Bohemian Grove. And if you don't know about the Bohemian Grove, all of our presidents, like the last 8 presidents that we've had, the last 12 presidents that we've had, Skull and Bones, everybody from Yale, the businessmen, elite businessmen, all the elite meet up at this place called the Bohemian Grove. And I can't think of the dude's name right now. Somebody help me out.
Alex Jones?
Alex Jones. So that crazy Alex Jones, about 15 years ago, he breaks into the Bohemian Grove. And I saw this video where they have all these people in robes, and they've got all these rich elites around, and they've got this gigantic statue of Moloch, this big owl. And they walk this woman up these steps, and they throw her into a fire, and everybody claps and screams, and they are sacrificing the death of their own care. It's called like the death of care ceremony, where we rid ourselves of our own empathy because our empathy gets in our way from being strong on this earth. And for me to see pictures of presidents going all the way back to, I know Reagan was there. I know the Bushes were there. I think Clinton was there.
Everybody except Donald Trump, ironically.
Trump never got invited, right?
No.
But even back, I think Truman, and I think you can
way back 60s. Yeah.
They're all participating in this ritual called the death of care to this fucking gigantic statue of Moloch. So when I saw that, I was like, wow, that is really creepy, and that is really weird and really wrong on all levels. and then Alex Jones sort of, to me, fell off the crazy truck and started selling muscle supplements and just completely lost his mind. And I used to love him because he was like talking about the Committee of 300 and the Carlyle Group and the people that actually run the world. And then somehow it's like Alex Jones really just the crazy button.
Alex went a little bananas. I kind of agree with you on that.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that was insulting about that, and that was Sandy Hook. There is no excuse for what he did. I mean, talk about injuring the families of slain children. It was awful.
Even if he didn't believe it, it was an absolutely horrible way to go about it. So, and it's gross, it's sad, and the guy's being sued in billions of dollars.
But forget about now. 15 years ago when he filmed that video, there's no way he could have faked that video. He was there. That happened. So, and
there was a guy that kind of mentored him, and Alex actually, I think he was envious. And Bill Cooper was his name, and Bill helped Alex for a little while, and then Bill eventually Alex wanted to become Bill, which kind of happened. And Cooper was the one that warned us about 9/11. Wow. And a lot of people believe he was taken out by the CIA because he was going around sounding the alarm.
Wait a
that all
second.
that was going to
Was
happen.
he the guy that disappeared in the canoe?
No, I know who you're talking about, but no, this is different.
He
Bill
was an
Cooper
ex-CIA.
has, he was ex-naval intelligence, and he wrote a book called "Behold a Pale Horse."
Oh, I've read that book.
Yeah, it's an amazing book. So you already know,
Yeah.
and Bill, he wasn't a guy that had political allegiance to anything. I don't even know what his faith was per se, but he just was very pragmatic. You know, he saw the world as it was, and he also kind of alluded to some things that he was involved in when he was in the intelligence community, and it kind of woke him up, and he started asking himself, why are we doing this? This feels wrong. This is crazy. In fact, this is downright batshit crazy. Why are they mixing, religious beliefs into military and economic
Military
and
operations
policy and all this other stuff? So yeah, they whacked him in his front yard, and of course they labeled him as crazy and conspiratorial. And he was one of the guys that talked a lot about, like, he called the Warren Commission an absolute joke. He knew, he would say for years, I think he was one of the only people that said the CIA and the mafia and the Democratic Party colluded in murdering John Kennedy.
Or leaking the idea that the military-industrial complex and the alien secret, possibly, he didn't go there.
There's a lot of reasons that they hated him. The cabal, or the people behind the scenes that run the show. Like, you have, senators and congressmen and even CEOs and pastors of churches and people, like, they're just front men. They're doing a job. They're unnamed people in the shadows. I mean, certain people claim to know their names, but this, we talk about Illuminati. These people believe and practice in blood purity, and they think that their bloodline goes all the way back to the beginning of written history, that that they have in their DNA, in their blood, they're part of the fallen angels. So
are we talking about people like
Cain?
Are we talking about people like the Rothschilds and the Vanderbilts and those type of folks? Okay.
Now, can just for our viewers, can you explain the difference between fallen angels, which I, raised a Christian, I know exactly what that is, and the Nephilim?
Okay.
Just so that our listeners know.
So if Genesis 6 doesn't really elaborate on it a lot, but if you read the book of Enoch, you get a play-by-play detail of what actually happened. And, most Christians will say, well, that's not canon. It actually was canon for almost 1,000 years. And the Vatican took it out because people were starting to travel the world. People were getting educated. They were learning how to read. So there was no reason for them to hide this information, because the common man was absolutely ignorant and uneducated and unable to learn of these things. So the Watchers were the 70 that I mentioned before. There was actually 200 in total that were given stewardship over creation, the world. So they even participated in creation with God himself. And they, everyone's very familiar with Lucifer, like he's the chief bad guy. But there were actually other Watchers that, I guess, committed far worse things, in rebellion to God and what they did to humanity, like Azazel and Shimyaza, and, the names are in there. But they basically went down and said, well, we want to play God. And they didn't like the way God was doing things. And a lot of people speculate that they actually hated humanity, because even though we were less powerful and less intelligent than the angels, they were jealous because, God said, let us make man in our image. Like there was something, more powerful and more unique and special of human beings above the angelic order. So a lot of people speculate that's why they hated us so much.
And these, are you talking about the Nephilim now?
No, not yet. I'll explain.
No.
The Nephilim are the offspring of these Watchers and human women. And the Nephilim, you could use another term, would be demigods. So they were half divine beings and half human. You think about demigods, you think about like Thor, Yeah, there's lots of names through different cultures all throughout history. You know, in Chinese culture, Roman, Greek. I'm totally blanking here. Like Celtic culture. There's these stories are like everywhere throughout human history. And while some of the demigods had different names, they were all kind of alluding to the same person eventually. And they were, you know, for all intents and purposes, kind of like the Avengers. They had supernatural powers. They were, you know, superhuman. And they were the ones that, you know, were set up and worshipped as gods, you know, which I mentioned about the divine council. And so imagine like Thor was a demigod. He was half human and half angel. And his father, what was Thor's father's name? How can I forget this? Yeah, but so Thor's father, say he was one of the watchers. Odin. So yeah. Odin was actually like a watcher, and Thor.
I know
was
that from
like,
Marvel.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you know, nobody crucify me on the facts here because I'm, you know, saying some of this off the fly based on, you know, memory. But yeah. It's just tried to set an example of, you know, you have angels who rebelled against God. They had sex with human women. And actually, the way it's said in scripture, it kind of alludes to like they took wives as whom they pleased. So they kind of they didn't ask, they just grabbed these women and said, "You're hot, let's get it on." And they had these, you know, semi-divine children.
So when you said that there's people here today that consider themselves descendants of these fallen angels, I assume Nephilim style as opposed to bloodline. pure bloodline.
Yeah.
Otherwise they would be angelic right now, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you know, you have the messianic history in the Bible of Jesus. So they say his lineage goes all the way back to Adam. And these Illuminati, they see their lineage is going all the way back to Cain, because Cain was the first murderer. And a lot of these hybrid bloodlines came from, you know, the Cainites, not Canaanites, but, you know, those that did not want to worship God, as it talks about in scripture. So a lot of these Illuminati religions, they look up to Cain as like their guy. So everyone else will say, well, Adam was the first man. To them, Cain was the first man because he was the first to spill blood and the first to follow in the ways of, you know, rebellion or evil towards God and humanity.
So I want to get back to the power players of today, and what their you know, and get back into the topic of child sex trafficking and what's going on and why it's going on. I guess the question I wanted to ask was, all right, so what's also bothered me, this is my brain is all different places right now because this is such a crazy it's a crazy topic, not in the sense that it's crazy,
it really is,
but it's you know, the implications of what are happening to these kids, even if it's a smaller problem than people think, it's terrifying. I watched a video you sent me the other day that showed a bunch of my friends in Hollywood as young kids that have grown up and become, you know, that were absolutely molested. They were absolutely molested when they were young. They're billionaires now. They don't talk about it, or they've killed themselves, or they're still alive, but they are handled exactly. And so many of my friends, when I, you know, from my Hollywood experience, have had terrible things happen to them as children in Hollywood, and have had to live with this abuse their whole lives, and they become drug addicts, or they become, you know, you see Macaulay Culkin walking around in his Satan t-shirts and
his rabbit ears,
and doing his drugs with his rabbit, and there's all these little symbols, and you see all these, and you see. You sent me this video. You know, wonderful with the
covering the eye and
what is it? The left or the right? I don't remember.
I think it's the left eye. Yeah, it's this. But no, I'm mirrored. My camera's mirrored. So and you know, the triangle and
the whole
666 and all that stuff. You know, symbolism.
Stuff. And there's definitely a power base behind Hollywood that is no good. And I mean, I can think back to the few experiences that I had. I'll tell them later. But as far as child sex trafficking goes, I guess, do you think we should show a couple of videos from Jim that you sent us and have him talk about the movie a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, you could, cue up those short clips from Jim, and I think showing the video of like Mary Kate and who else? There's a few people in that video.
I definitely want to show that video. I'm going to save it for the end of the show if people want.
Okay, yeah.
It's like a 10-minute video if people want to.
Yeah, is it that long? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's let Jim talk about his personal experience. And I will say, the time I spent with Jim, we sat down and he shared some of this stuff. And he's not going to name names. And I'll tell you one of the stories that he told me after this.
Okay.
And I don't want to name names, but I can assure you that Jim is talking from experience, and he was shown things and told things by people that are actively, working to bring down these traffickers.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of big celebrities that have so-called gone crazy because they've got deep enough into Hollywood to freak out about what they were promoting. I can think of what's his name, that comedian from Def Jam who became a huge superstar.
Waving
Chris Tucker? No, Chris Tucker, but also Martin Lawrence. Waving his gun in the street, saying people are trying to kill me. I don't want to be a part of this anymore.
That's right. Dave Chappelle was talking about that.
Dave Chappelle runs off to Africa, right? Yeah. When they offer him $50 million and he gets a peek behind the curtain and he goes, no, and he leaves the country. So, and then he comes back, years later, and he says, there's a little something sick that going behind the scenes. And he drops some dimes on a lot of different shows about, some of the sick stuff that he was asked to do that he couldn't, by any moral obligation, do. And what Chappelle says that makes it interesting to me is Chappelle says, look, I'm not a weak dude. Chris Tucker's not a weak dude. Anybody that reaches this level,
Tyrese Gibson.
Yeah, Tyrese. Anybody that reaches that level of Hollywood, you bust your ass, you break your ass. You are a hardcore dude to get to that spot. And for you to just suddenly go crazy is almost unreasonable. People like Dave Chappelle don't go crazy. They're intelligent, incredibly intelligent human beings and businessmen, etc. So let's listen to Jim, and then after your story, I want to move on to this whole QAnon thing.
Okay.
I don't want you to see this film, but the more people that see this film, what's going to happen is going to lift the massive awareness. And then my prayer is that when the whistleblower watches this movie, he's going to go, I don't care about death anymore. I know what I know, and I'm not afraid any longer. This is the worst of all Holocausts there ever was. We're living in it right now. I want to take you guys down. I'm going to use my weapon. My purpose in this life is to end you. You're done. You're absolutely over with. And then that came from the biblical line, better that a millstone be hung around your neck, that you be cast into the sea, that you should ever hurt one of these little ones. And so this is a film they don't want you to see, because there's going to be a stone you throw in your life like David, where you're going to meet your Goliath, but you're not going to be afraid any longer.
The Sound of Freedom, folks, July 4th.
Wow.
I did a movie a long time ago in New York, and I was with Homicide, and I got to see the contortion of a face when someone gets murdered, and it's hard to watch. But when you start going into this, which is children, there is something that I can't even fathom. I had no choice but to go in, and I hear the screams in my heart. I hear the screams because of the agents that I got to work with, got to show me things. And one particular time, he says, are you sure you want to go further? It took me 2 years to get over this.
How has this changed you? How is experiencing that material and having to play it out changed you?
I will tell you this right now. I would absolutely die. If this were to change the world and get rid of trafficking and pornography and all of the 8 arms of this octopus that has to be destroyed, the only way you can destroy it is take the head out. If that hit, I'd give my life for it in a heartbeat.
Wow. I mean, he's dead serious. He's not.
Jim is
around.
very passionate about it. I mean, the dude has
Now,
so much
just
integrity.
to be clear, all pornography.
In his mind.
Well, I think maybe in his mind, but I think the reason that Jim talked about that specifically is it's kind of been uncovered the last 2 or 3 years that
I think,
there's like Pornhub.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Sites.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I think he's more referring to the dark web child pornography than he is.
Yeah, that. But what Jim and I talked about before, and he was telling me some of the statistics that a lot of the videos that people casually watch, say, oh, like this person's like 18 or whatever, that like 80+% of girls that end up making porn are trafficked into it or lured into it or blackmailed into it. And that's kind of like the, I guess the top level of it. But Pornhub has gotten in tons of trouble for selling videos and labeling them that this person was 18 years old, and they're actually filming the rape of a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old.
Well, now that we're talking about people that are meant to look young, and I agree with that. But I mean, there's adults, who are clearly in their 30s and 40s, that clearly want to make this movie, and there are people who want to watch that movie.
I want to make this clear. I'm all about sex trafficking. I'm not sex trafficking. I'm all about. That's not what I'm all about. Jesus.
I'm not approved by any measure.
Okay? Yeah, I'm all about porn. I don't think. And I'm all for sex workers. I think sex. I think it should be legal. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I think it would take away a lot of the evil that happens in pornography. And some of these poor kids that don't have any money, that are 15 or 16, and fake that they're 18 to go get into an experience that they didn't know they were getting into. Because when you watch some of this younger porn, you'll see these girls aren't enjoying themselves.
Right.
And it's really ugly. And I think that's more of the porn that he's probably referring to. He probably doesn't like pornography in general, but
no, I don't think Jim does. But
no,
I think
but they are two separate issues. They are two different things: pornography and child pornography. It's a completely different.
And I want to be clear: this is not the hill I'm trying to die on, like defending pornography.
Yeah,
it's not the hill I want to die on. I'm just saying.
Tyson,
let's keep the child stuff and the really adult. I mean, 35, 40. Clearly not child stuff.
Truly
separate.
Consenting people,
truly, age appropriate consenting. I think that's and speaking of which, age of consent, that's another thing, and you have to talk about that with child trafficking, because the world doesn't have an age limit, right? The U.S. says 18, but what about Europe? What about Africa?
Most of Europe is 16.
So what is child trafficking? Like, what is the age?
Well, anything under 16 for sure.
Well, child porn in and of itself, I think, is basically like right at puberty and below. But, we know there's some 12, 13, 14-year-olds that have gone through puberty and they look very mature physically, but they are definitely not mature emotionally. And they kind of get covered, swept in that group. But when we're talking about child pornography, we're talking about men that pay money to watch infants be vaginally or anally raped.
Yeah.
Oh,
and young children, dude, it is filthy stuff. And I don't even like talking about it, but
nobody likes talking about it. And that's part of the problem. Nobody likes to even look. Nobody even likes to believe that it could possibly even exist, and that's part of the biggest. problem.
It exists. I've seen stuff. I have seen it with my eyes. And
some of my Chaldean friends have told me in the Middle East there are men, grown-ass 35, 40-year-old men, that will marry 11 and 12-year-old girls. I couldn't legally
9-year-old girls.
Legally marry. Legally marry. Not this isn't behind closed doors or secret or go to a court and have a document and she's my property now. Property is what they said. My property.
Yeah. So yes, it happens, and and by and large, men are the majority of consumers and actors in this area. I mean, women do it, but at a much, like, almost a percentage not worth mentioning. But it's primarily men
I'm
that
guessing that
participate and propagate this stuff.
you must know a bit about this, and then we'll move on to what your story and QAnon. But I have to mention the island. I have to mention Jeffrey Epstein.
Epstein Island, yep.
Because
We've got
Epstein is a multi-billionaire hanging out with multi-billionaire celebrities. We have the plane records, the plane manifests of everybody who's landed on that island and how many multiple times they've been there. And these are big names. Can you mention a few?
Lots of Trump.
Trump was there. The Clintons were there. I mean,
yes.
Ellen was there multiple times. Come on, John Podesta. The names go on and on.
Well, we could go on the list. There's actually some people that were put out in the public list, and I think 22 of them were not actually there.
Really?
But we all know about Prince Andrew. See, because they were conflating with people that flew on Epstein's plane and lumping those people in that went from like Miami to New York. Say, well, if they were on the plane, then they were on the island. And I think someone like that was, oh geez, I mean, Eminem was on the island.
Well, he did throw
Will
parties
Smith
that were just plain old parties for the celebrities. But
But
if you were there 20 times, you gotta, if you were there 10 times, I think
Bill Clinton was there 28 times.
Yeah,
we're coming up on 7. We have people that want to talk to you. Let's get to the meat of this. So I'm going to ask the question straight out. I'm going to ask it straight out. Did Jeffrey Epstein, knowing exactly what he did and what he was about to face, take his own life, or did he get murdered?
He was murdered.
I'm almost sure of that too. I don't see how this man, with the ego that he had, with the control of the world that he had, with the money that he had, was going to off himself in prison just because he was going to have to face this court case.
How many of those rich people that he obviously, I mean, Trump, Clinton, I mean, you named the list, right?
Trump didn't.
Royalty, of all of that. How many powerful people's lives would have been damaged if he'd have made it to court?
Not damaged, ruined.
People that every one of us know.
Yeah.
Politicians, Hollywood, business, athletes, you name it.
And instead, we open a $1 billion child sex trafficking ring, and the only person that gets blamed is this woman, Ghislaine, whatever. It's incredibly stupid to me.
Ghislaine was basically.
Is there anybody?
Everything that I understand, she actually handled Epstein.
Yeah, but was there has to be somebody else to be prosecuted in this, just because they shot him or poisoned him?
She was the chief of staff, if you want to relate it to something. She was his chief of staff. And so everything that went through Epstein, or everything that got to Epstein, went through her.
But she's still alive,
or booking agent, or whatever you want to.
She's listen to the girl's testimonies. Every one of them was brought to Epstein by Ghislaine Maxwell. All these girls, she was the madam, if you will.
Well, they talk about in Florida that, I'm an LGBT person. I'm a gay man. And they talk about grooming and don't say gay. Look at what she was doing. That was grooming. She was grooming young girls to be, and I don't know. There's something about Florida and the law in Florida and Ron DeSantis that I'm not going to get into.
I think the point of which it wasn't, I don't want to argue about it. Don't say gay, but I think the point was from keeping the TQ plus community from taking advantage of existing laws that benefit gays and lesbians. And bringing, I took the TQ plus off of the LGBTQ plus.
Oh.
That is the focus.
LGBT is fine. Let's just say LGBT. LGBT. Okay. We don't need the rest of the alphabet. LGBT. But my point is that there are heterosexual child
molesters,
predators there, right? It is not limited, and by saying, we're not going to allow. By the way, children in Florida are being raised by same-sex couples. I mean, and kids are going to have questions about that. I mean, I'm not saying, I mean, everything ought to be age appropriate. They just said that they're canceling AP Psych in Florida because they're not allowed to talk about, because psychology, absolutely, college psychology talks about the LGBT and you know, the mindset and everything. And if you want to have AP psychology, that is a chapter. That is a chapter.
Think, I think the controversy is, well, do we have a break going? Because I want to speak to this. It's a tough conversation because I have gay and lesbian family members and friends and whatever, and they've asked me, well, oh, this is barbaric or whatever. And I think part of what has happened is the narrative in the media. It's gone right down political lines. And you know, I'm a parent of 5. I have 3 sons and 2 daughters. And there was an incident that happened here. I live in Northern Virginia, right outside DC, in an adjacent county. And if someone can hear what I'm trying to say and the way I see it and the way I understand it, and I'm working with people locally, that, you know, Democrats, Republicans, independents, you know, gays and lesbians, and we're all, as parents, we're focusing, this is the vulnerability, and these are the things they're trying to bring into the school. And when you say it on Twitter or Facebook or, you know, mainstream news media, they completely, you know, deflect what the concerns are of people like me, and then just say, oh, they're gay bashing, they're trans bashing, and they never really talk about it. This 15-year-old boy who, you know, was trans, he identified and that he was getting access to the girls' bathrooms. Even though he presented as male, I think, I don't know, maybe he grew his hair out, but he raped 3 girls in the girls' bathroom during school. And the county school board covered it up. The sheriff's department covered it up. The county's DA, it was just a massive cover up. And then the father of one of the girls came to a school board meeting, and the school board chair had him arrested and called him a terrorist. And saying, well, if you're conservative or you're Christian or Republican or white, or even if you have a concern about what the school is teaching, then you're a domestic terrorist. The FBI even got involved. You know, our new Attorney General Garland, you know, started a list, and the National Teachers Union, whatever. But it turns out that, you know, parents that weren't involved, so I kind of woke up and said, whoa, what is this? And it brought, you know, people from all different walks of life together.
Well, and this is just some pervert that's not really a trans person at all, that's going in there to,
I know, but it's
access.
What's happened is a lot of people are using the trans as an umbrella to do their perverted acts. Like this murderer is saying, oh, I'm trans now, and put me in a woman's prison, and they end up assaulting the female inmates and stuff like that. It's kind of
bad act.
So
for me, that's
right. But what happens to the rest of the trans? Here's an example. Lauren Boebert and several people, when the trans woman went and shot up that company, and I watched the news. Oh, this trans woman, it was probably the chemicals. It was probably, you know, she was deranged. She went and shot everything. You remember that? The trans woman, the mass shooter. Okay.
Are you talking about in Nashville?
Yeah. In the last
Christian school. Yeah. Okay.
Right. It was a Christian. In the last 2 years, there's been over 500 mass shootings, and 1 was trans. And they
actually 9 were, but that's okay.
No, okay, 9. But I didn't hear Lauren Boebert going on and saying, "Hey, a straight cisgender male shot up this school," or a straight. They just never say that when it's a straight person or a white person or a male. But boy, are they sure to point it out when it is a trans person. Why is that? Why don't they go and say, "Hey, this straight white Christian guy shot up the school"? They never say that.
They should.
They should. Yeah.
I think
either you say it for everybody or you say it for nobody.
I'm in for equal opportunity for everything.
Right.
You know,
right.
Just call it out like it is. I want the truth to be told. And there may be people on the right or Republicans or whatever that
on
things that are inconvenient, they don't want to hear about it.
On Dangerous Thoughts tonight, we're talking about a heated topic, and I love it, and I haven't gotten even close to where I want to get to.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry.
I'm adding another half an hour to the show if you guys will stick around.
No, it's a good subject. Tyson brought up. I mean, it should be talked, but I don't want it to derail from everything else that we plan on talking about.
No, I think you guys both made your points. So what I want to discuss is QAnon. This whole idea.
I have a son who's struggling with trans stuff, so it's not, it's, you know, it's extremely personal, and it's hard for any parent or family going through those things. So yeah.
Let's talk about QAnon. Let's talk about what when I was discussing QAnon with you, you told me something about the history of the language and the letter Q and anon.
Yes.
And what's the difference? So give us a little education.
The letter Q, the 17th letter in the alphabet, refers to a Q clearance, which is issued by the Department of Energy. To my knowledge, it is the highest level access security clearance you can get in the government and military. Like, it is the top. And I want to say in December 2016, somebody started posting on Reddit, and their sign off was Q. And they were dropping information, like inside information, like, hey, you know, keep an eye out for this person. And I think the first two drops actually had to do about Hillary Clinton and John Podesta, ironically enough. And the focus was, you know, this person, no one knows who they were. I think a lot of people tried to claim who they were and said, oh, I figured out who it was. But this person always signed off with Q. And, you know, the media, when they talk about Q, they're like, oh, QAnon. It's actually, that's, you know, not the right nomenclature for people that have been in the community or understand what's going on. Q is the insider, and Anons are the people on Reddit and 4chan that interacted with Q. That's what I was telling you about.
Okay. And so do the QAnon folks believe that all these people that are sex trafficking children and eating their adrenochrome and possibly murdering them and bathing in their blood and all the different things that could be going on, that I think are going on, but do the QAnon people think it's just all to the left and all to the Democratic side of the world? Right?
No.
So that's a misstep.
This is an equal opportunity indictment for bad actors wherever. Okay. I mean, let's be real about it, the highest incidence of child sexual assault and abuse has been in religious institutions, the Catholic Church, and
no doubt,
you know, different Protestant denominations, the Evangelical Church. I am personally a survivor of child sexual assault, and it was involved in a church that my parents were attending. So that's probably one of the reasons that I was most interested in seeing, well, who is this Q guy and what is the stuff he's dropping? And I got really, really excited. Like, hey, can we actually stop this? Can we protect the kids? Save the innocence of children. So when I started getting into it and reading all this stuff, and there were a lot of the things that were said, predictions made, and of course, people got involved. I think it has all the classic marks of a PSYOP. And I would say that there are beneficial PSYOPs and there are bad PSYOPs. And even right from the get-go, I think by January 2017, like, it just became this viral thing. And all kinds of weirdos and clout chasers and grifters got involved in it. So it was really hard to kind of suss everything out. And people had agendas. You know, I think they strangely almost kind of cultically worshiping Donald Trump, and definitely insanely over vilifying people on the left. And that's, I still don't believe that's what the movement was really about. I think it was about exposing corruption, exposing evil, regardless of if they have an R or a D by their names, or they happen to be CEO of a major corporation.
That's what I hope.
Or religious leader. That is the true intent of the movement. But, you know, it got co-opted by a lot of different people with bad interests or self-interest.
And the spin went.
And there were people that made some absolutely insane, you know, connections, like, that just didn't exist, like really crazy stuff, like, oh, Donald Trump is George Patton reincarnated, and here's why. And I mean, there's a bunch of them, like just.
When it comes to Catholic priests, and my heart is with you. No child should ever have to do that. But I'm wondering how much of that is, are homosexual males drawn to being a Catholic priest, or is the life imposed on a Catholic priest of abstinence get to a man in such a way that I haven't touched anything in so long that anything that moves will do, and since I have access to boys and I have power, that's what I'm going to have to.
They sleep with the nuns,
are they?
too.
I think...
right. So, does abstinence play a role in when you're a sexual being and you go without for 2 years? It's
entirely plausible. Yeah, I mean, but of course, some gay men become priests and have a flawless career of celibacy. And some heterosexual men become priests and become abusers. Like, I don't know if you can set it in stone one way or another, but where I come from and where I think people that get into positions of authority like that, whether it's in the church or politics or doctors or actors or whatever,
the police,
or law enforcement, exactly. Yeah. There's certain types of narcissistic, controlling personalities that just they're not good people, and they take advantage of the trust.
So they seek roles where you have a position of power.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's more likely. And the secondary part was, they themselves were abused as kids, and it's a cycle that perpetuates.
So they think because it's normal. It happened to me. I did it to him. It's a normal cycle.
Well, they could rationalize that. Well, this is normal. Or some could even struggle with it. I had a dear friend of mine who just retired from his psychology practice, and he actually was my therapist for a few years, but we became friends far after I was done through that. And he would tell me story after story of people that wrecked their lives, and the majority of them were people that survived sexual abuse as children, and then just one temptation, like, just wrecked their lives. And more often than not, it happened that they weren't getting the help that they needed, and they didn't feel safe to talk about it. I mean, men in general have a hard time being open and intimate about their feelings in general. And when you say, well, actually, from when I was 9, 10, 11, I got, raped maybe 100 times by a family friend who was also in a trusted position at our church, and my mom's best friend's son. I mean, how do you talk about that stuff?
Irreparable damage.
It's really, really hard to do.
Yeah. I want to go back to the trafficking video. No, the Jeffrey Epstein, Joe Rogan video, and the mistakes they made, the textbooks video. Are those worth watching while we're on this subject?
Yes. Yeah.
Let's watch those two videos: the Jeffrey Epstein video and the Ghislaine Maxwell video.
Do you know people that know Jeffrey Epstein?
Yes.
Yeah,
I do.
Me too.
There's many people that feel like he was an agent and that he was trying to compromise people. And that's one of the things about this whole Lolita Island thing. I mean, there's a lot of thoughts, but that's one of the things about when he got arrested. Was it the prosecutor, whoever it was that cut him a deal, literally was quoted as saying, "I was told he's above my pay grade," and that he was intelligence. That's the quote.
Really? The intelligence thing? No one seems to know how he made
got his money.
Yeah.
Well, the $70 million penthouse that he had in Manhattan was given to him.
Right.
Given to him. Yeah. Who the gives someone a $70 million house?
Well, I was kind of hoping you would to me.
I don't have one.
Okay.
If I have a bunch of them, I'll give you one.
You know who created the biggest textbooks that we all use today?
Is that Webster?
No, it's Pergamon Press. They're one of the biggest textbook publishing companies in the world. And you know who created it? Robert Maxwell.
Who's that?
That's good old Ghislaine Maxwell's father.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And that's what we're going to be teaching our kids? And this guy Robert also was offed. The official story is that he fell into the water off his yacht and drowned. But a few weeks before, people got word that he was part of the Mossad, basically. He had very close ties. And once he got outed as that, they had to cut him off. They dumped him in the ocean.
Jeez.
Ha! Holy moly!
Sorry, I meant Penn, not Teller. That was Penn, right?
Yeah,
Did I say that right? Wow.
Yeah, that was Penn.
Yeah, yeah. Well, here's one of the two thoughts. I mean, if you want to discount the dark spiritual side of child trafficking, porn, whatever,
how can you?
Blackmail or compromise is the term that they use. I talked to a guy that was a junior congressman. I'm not going to mention his name. His career didn't last very long, but he was one of these people that came to town that had stars in his eyes, and he wanted to represent his district and do all this amazing stuff. He had a vision. He considered himself to be a patriot, and he was not a Republican, by the way. Shared a story through another friend of mine, and part of the reason why he just left immediately after his first term was because he was putting and I can't say this as I know for a fact, but this is firsthand information, and the way it was explained to me and what I was told. And then I had a girl who was trafficked. That story, she confirmed, yes, I was in that situation, and I was used to compromise many people in that scenario, same scenario, where they're pushed to be compromised. And if they say, no, I don't want any part of that, they will find a way to get you in a room naked with a young girl, and then sometimes even kidnap. Like we watch TV and you see someone get grabbed, they put a black bag over his head, throw him in a van. The guy wakes up, he'd been drugged, and he's in bed next to this girl. Nothing happened, but they had already got it on camera. So in the world's eyes, that doesn't matter.
Yeah,
and he was crying.
We know.
And the girl said to him, she's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so like, and he's like, what did I do? She's like, nothing, but I'm really sorry this happened to you. This
is one of the things that makes this whole issue so sticky, because we know that it's been a CIA, KGB. It's the way Putin got in power, labeling people as sex traffickers and putting child pornography on their computer. This is an old operation that they've done to plenty of people. I know Putin got hit in power by doing this to a bunch of people. You can look it up. As a secret police type of dude before he was Putin, before he was oligarch. I mean, president or diplomat.
The CIA, Mossad, MI6,
dictator,
KGB. They all do this stuff. I mean, this is old spycraft. I mean, we're talking before modern times.
So
back hundreds of years.
Yeah, separating that from real bad actors is also a trick. So
which it convolutes things a little more.
Yeah. What was I want? Okay, so we got that in. I want to see Mel Gibson talking about Christopher Walken. Just
and a funny story.
And the Madonna video as well.
Please. Yeah.
His whole opinion about women on film, from beginning to end, is very brief. He says, women on film, either naked or dead. Both is better. And it's like, whoa, ooh. The man has got a spiritual malady for a start. I mean, the scary thing is that I think a lot of people think that. Maybe not to that extreme. Came to see me on a rooftop in New York. I said, hey, can I talk to you? And he said, sure. And he floated in, sideways, through a crowd of people. He was wearing black. And it was like one of those old vampire movies where they don't walk, but they glide. And he was a dancer, so he has he's very, graceful.
Yeah.
And he moved sideways, and he just sat down in a chair next to me. And it kind of frightened me. And he's a very smart guy. And we started talking.
Wow. And he's talking about Chris, right? Chris Walken. I love Christopher Walken.
I do too. He's a great actor.
Great actor, great funny guy. I love the way he speaks and moves and all that stuff. But he was on the boat when what's her name went overboard. It was just him and
Natalie Wood.
Yeah, Natalie Wood died, and it was just him and that other guy that's totally creepy.
Her husband,
Robert. He was in. He was in one of the Kubrick movies. He was
in a lot of TV shows too. I can't remember,
Yeah.
like 70s, 80s. I can't remember his name now.
terrible actor, total ego head.
Yeah.
And it was just him and Walken and her that night. And so who knows, but still, Chris has done quite well in Hollywood. I'm not going to talk any shit about him because I don't know. I've always wanted to work with him, but
that's I get it. And that's a clip from a much bigger interview where, Mel drops a lot of stuff.
But I've had that same feeling, right? I worked with Army Hammer, and I'll go straight out about this. I did this movie called J. Edgar with Clint Eastwood, Leo DiCaprio, and Army Hammer. And I only spent 2 days on that movie, and I just smoked a couple of smokes with the kid, and I had that same feeling of just, this dude is dark. This dude is creepy. I don't want to hang.
Are we still talking about Walken?
No, we're talking about Army Hammer. Army Hammer.
Okay.
Yeah. And I just had that feeling, I just went, I'm not going to hang with this dude. I'm not going to get this guy's number. There's just something about him. I feel real darkness coming off this gentleman. And then it turns out Army has been, beating up all these women. And what he's been doing is he's been telling girls, hey, I want to marry you. I want to take you on a date. I want to have your baby. And then he brings them to rooms and he goes, let me tie you up a little bit. Let's get kinky. Then he beats the ever-loving crap out of them.
That was on the news last year. I remember. Okay.
Disappears from their lives.
I'm caught up.
Yeah. And he does it over and over and over again. And he's actually part of the House of Hammer. His dad was just as much of a misogynist and a woman beater. And it goes down through the generations. So I've had that same type of experience in Hollywood where I just went, this dude, I don't know why he's in the position of power he's in, but I don't like his energy. I don't think he's a good person. It was just like, I could see it. I could see that dark aura around him.
Okay, I'll drop a quick rabbit hole bomb, and we don't have to talk about it for anyone listening. If you're curious, research Jessica Chastain's husband. It's very weird. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
And we're talking about darkness in Hollywood. We're talking about the gray pope, the white pope, the black pope. This guy is from an ancient family in Italy. And, if you research enough, you'd be like, what the? So.
Okay. I'll take a look.
And
I
it's like
down rabbit holes.
And the people that seem to be the most successful and get the most work and the most roles are probably the most compromised and either been pushed into it or made poor decisions. It used to be the $20 million club. Now it's the $50 million club, which Rock is in.
Yeah.
So I'm not making an accusation. I'm just saying it's weird.
Manu, it's even though we're live on video, it's still my job to remind you that we have several people lined up who would like to speak to our guests.
Yes, I absolutely. Yes. Let's take some questions from our lovely audience for Chris Gilbert.
Oh, let me look at the comments. I miss those.
They'll have first. We got is Legacy Zach the first up. Who's up first?
Yes, Legacy Zach is up first, and then we have Katie and Chris is in. And Legacy Zach has video tonight. Look at that.
Look at that. All right.
Hey.
That is working.
Nice to see you. Shoot your questions at my friend Chris here.
Oh, I guess listening. My question is the CIA aspect. So how long do we think the CIA, Mossad, have they been doing this ever since?
From the beginning.
Inception. So
doing what?
Just doing what exactly? Just subversion, just to ensure they have power, or?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with power, but I don't think everybody involved are connected to the deep, dark spiritual practices behind it. But there's it's on the FBI vault, and maybe when we take a break, I'll look it up. But the CIA actually got busted, and some operatives in the CIA created a cult. They kidnapped random kids from around the country, sequestered them, put them in cages, did horrible things to them, like throwing feces and blood and urine, and just absolutely destroyed the psyche of these kids. They, molested them. And the purpose of it was to break them down so they could become programmed assassins or operatives.
This is stuff that's been declassified.
It's documented. It's in the FBI's vault.
Is it a particular operation that you know the name of?
I cannot recall the name. Give me a few minutes and I'll dig it up. But it's there.
Wow.
And I think some FBI agent accidentally stumbled onto it on a missing persons case. Like one of the kids that got kidnapped, a relative saw the kid, and that's kind of what opened the door. But it is just evil, dark, bizarre stuff that our government was sanctioning and funding. Now, some people say, well, it was a rogue operation, but it's documented on the books.
For our listeners, so everybody knows, Mossad is Israel's version of the CIA. England has MI6, that's their version. The US, of course, the CIA. So when you hear Mossad, CIA, MI6, it's our own country's version of secret intelligence. Is that basically correct?
It's basically all the things that spawned from the Gestapo when we were fighting them in World War II. We needed to have our own version to fight back. And
a lot of people don't know about Operation Paperclip, but at the end of World War II, the Allies sat down and basically split down the middle these supposedly talented individuals from the SS, from the Germans. NASA was started by German SS rocket scientists. The CIA, the first director of the CIA was an SS officer, and MI6 and Eastern European, the Russians, the KGB, like
Operation Paperclip.
That's Operation Paperclip. Yeah. And this is all documented, factual stuff. So I mean, here's one of my favorite one. The first President Bush, his father,
Vanover
Bush, his father was a U.S. senator and got arrested and spent time in prison because he was funding factories in Nazi Germany. A lot of people like to say the Bush family has a lot of Nazi ties.
Oh yeah, they do. And especially through Vanover, who was a big banker, supported them before the war, supported them during the war. Crazy stuff. And Werner von Braun is the rocket scientist that we got our V2s and our nuclear rockets from, and our space rockets from.
His assistant's name is Carol Rosen. Man, I wish we could get Carol to do an interview.
I would love it to go all the way down the rabbit hole and go all the way to the strange place. Werner von Braun, the rocket scientist from Operation Paperclip, the top dude that was doing that rocket work for us, for the nuclear bomb testing, etc.
The V1, the V2,
the V2, all those rockets. He said on his deathbed that one of the last operations they were going to do is they were going to create a war against the alien invasion, which is really what's happening right now.
They're doing it right now. And he said, don't believe it. It's a lie.
Don't believe it. It's a lie. That was his last words on his deathbed.
Wait, they were going to say that again, that they were going to...
They were going to create one of their last bullshit wars in this never-ending war machine, which we'll be talking about with Corin Nemec in a couple of weeks. That's why I wanted to not stray too far off topic. But he said that one of the last forever war, their last card, was to create an alien invasion and convince the people we were being invaded by aliens, and a war, and create a war against them, and that they were not bad actors, and convince the American public to go to war against these things.
Got it.
So now with the deep dark rabbit hole of David Grush saying that we've had alien spaceships since the 40s, and we've had their biologicals in their bodies, and pretty soon we'll be told they're a threat, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what Werner von Braun said.
Before we get to our next speaker, I have a question for Zach. Zach, just for the record, how old are you?
How old am I? I'm 34.
Yeah. So you're over 18.
Yes.
Okay.
He looks like he's 17. You look
Just
young,
you know,
dude.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say you're a very handsome man, but I didn't want to go to prison for saying that if you were 17 or 16. So see, this is one of those where you do have a baby face. And by the way,
yeah.
How do you do that? Because I'm in my 40s. You're, I guess, in your 30s, but you look like you're in your teens.
Hey man, I make the joke. I make the joke because when I was 15, with me and the family went to St. Augustine, drank from the Fountain of Youth. So every time I tell people, I'm like,
okay,
I drank from the Fountain of Youth, so maybe it did something. Maybe it's.
I need to find that fountain, sir, because you look way too young than you should be, and I love that. I wish I did. I wish I did.
Headed out there.
Mm-hmm. And then
all right,
I got something too, like to recommend, like on the CIA stuff. Like I'm reading through Legacy of Ashes. Phenomenal book, like to actually get into detail of what the CIA is all about and just the corruption, of how they got set up and established, and the fact that the legislation that was passed in 1947 was not ratified at all. Like they didn't even have a true majority. Like it's pretty. It's pretty interesting.
The Legacy of Ashes. Who's it written by? Do you remember the author's name?
I mean, I got the book right now.
I'll look it up if you can't remember.
But I forget the guy's name. Actually, I can look it up. But
because I find this really interesting thing from there's an old quote by one of the people that was the top, whatever they call the captain of the CIA, the what do they call him? The guy that runs the
director.
The director.
Yeah.
So an old director of the CIA in the 1970s said, by the time we're done with our misinformation program, everything that every American believes to be true will be false. And that was the scariest quote that I've ever heard. So
you just didn't want to say his name. His name is Tim Weiner.
Tim.
That's right.
I don't know, Werner or something. I don't know.
His name,
Tim Weiner.
Tim Werner? Tim Weiner?
Tim
Werner.
Tim Weiner.
Tim Weiner. All right. So we've got more questions for Chris. Who's next?
Is it Cassie?
Up next, we have Katie.
Katie. Sorry, my eyes are good. Hello, Katie.
Then after Katie, we're gonna end with the what's up, but we're gonna start with Katie.
Okay.
So Cooey, I believe is how Katie introduces, right?
Yeah, no, I've been listening, and the entire subject of trafficking and things like that, it turns my stomach, and I want to hurt people that do that. And I mean, just ask Mano and Tyson. I don't mince my words. But
no, anybody that child traffics should be shot in the face. I'm sorry.
They should, as slowly as possible. But no,
that's great.
Validation device, it can work. But no, what I wanted to ask you, Chris, is it's not just the very young that are trafficked. There are women of age who just look really young, and unfortunately for them, they're some of the people that are targeted as well. Just generally speaking. But what do you think that young women and parents of young children could actually do to protect themselves and their children?
Well, I can tell you from unfortunate experience, the younger children, keep them off of social media as much as possible, or if they're using it, you absolutely need to know what's going on. The most important thing is don't overshare, because traffickers can use a lot of information. Every photograph you take on your phone has a geolocation stamp, and people like to do selfies if they're on Instagram or Snapchat or Facebook or whatever. They talk about the school they went to, the friends they have. We're going to be at the mall this, Friday night. We're going to see a movie. And these guys can take very little information, build a profile on your child, even kind of figure out, the personality type, or if the kid has they're too needy, or they need friends, or there's even a problem at home. And they especially look for children with single parents, a broken family, lower income. They build profiles and they actively look and get people. My daughter, who's 17 now, had a very bad experience online during the lockdown. I like to call it the scamdemic, but I'll leave it at that, or the plandemic, as some people call it. But this particular person was known to me and my daughter, and I'll just say right now he's sitting in prison for 9 years. So I thought, of all people, how in the fuck could that happen to me under my nose? So it happens. And I have a 25-year-old daughter who's just finished law school and starting her life, and I still worry about her. I tell her all the time, don't be alone. I have 5 kids. I'm 54.
This another reason why I picked this topic for this show is that this movie was getting so much flack that I couldn't understand for the life of me why a movie about child sex trafficking, which is a serious issue in this country and around the world, would ever have anybody want to stop people from at least watching it and having their minds open to what's going on in the world.
I don't understand the problem.
Yeah, I don't
And
understand.
Katie, I'll tell you another thing. Shopping malls are a huge hunting ground.
Yeah, yeah. Let me finish too. My wife, when she was 16, going on 17, she went out to New York to what she thought was and this is another reason I brought this show to attention, and I hope people watch and share. Is my wife went to this thing that was supposed to be, and it was like it was presented to her as a model competition to find a young, new, hot model for, magazines and etc. And she found herself alone in a room with some kind of an Arab prince who went to violate her and tried to duct tape her. And she went running out of the hallway, and she banged on a bunch of doors going down the hotel hallway to get people's attention. And he went back in his room, and she called grandma, who's now passed away, and begged for a plane ticket to get out of there and get back home. So this kind of thing is happening. My own wife at 16 was almost snatched by somebody, and that was in America, in New York. So a lot of people throw this away as like child sex trafficking isn't happening in America. It is.
People over here in the UK say the same. Oh, it's not happening over here. It's only happening in like Europe, and it's like, well, hold on, it's happening all over the world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the UK was in Europe.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. They no.
I mean, it is in Europe. It is not.
No,
in the European Union.
An island.
You're an island. Okay, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
so,
But it's kind of all right.
It's all a load of bollocks, Tyson, basically. But no, a lot of people over here say things like that. Oh, stuff like that don't happen here.
And wasn't Philip? Is that his name? Prince Andrew? Was it Prince Andrew that was?
Prince Andrew, yeah.
There is somebody in our monarchy, in our royal family,
participating in it.
Committed these atrocities. He's been a willing participant in this, and yet nobody has really done anything. And it's just like, hold on a minute. He should have his royal title and royal status just completely dissolved. He should have it removed, and also he
go
should
to
be
jail.
Punished. It's ridiculous. People with certain status across the world don't get punished for things that they should.
Well, if Epstein was alive, he probably would be in jail, Prince Andrew.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay,
he's not alive.
Yeah. And it should.
I said if Epstein was alive.
So I want to answer Red Baron. I apparently got his ire. I will clarify, when I say scamdemic or plandemic, it was absolutely a real virus. I got it 4 times. I know people that died from it. What I'm talking about is that it was an intentional method of control and lockdown to see how much compliance they could get away, and how much they could control us globally. So yeah, I by no means think that it was a fake virus, but I very much believe it was released intentionally, which, you know, a lot of people were saying very early on it was leaked intentionally from a lab in Wuhan. Like in the last 6 months, you know, even our government is like, oh yeah, actually it kind of did come from Wuhan.
Well,
But you know, I get pissed off.
It came from Wuhan. It came from Wuhan. The question is, did it come from Wuhan naturally, through an accidental leak, or through an intentional leak? Those are the three. Nobody questions, did it come from Wuhan? Nobody questions that. Everybody, 100% agreement.
Well,
It's
maybe
just,
now it's 100% agreement, but I believe these things are done intentionally.
was it naturally, accidentally, or intentionally? Those are the questions.
Yeah.
Intentional is my opinion on that, but there is something that was done, I want to say September, October of 2019. I think Agenda 201 or something like that. Bill Gates was there, Klaus Schwab, all these power players in the world, and they were talking about a potential upcoming outbreak. 3 months later, the first case of COVID is talked about in November, and I actually got it at the end of November, right before Christmas, 2019. I've had it 4 times. It killed a friend of mine. So I mean, it's I'm not denying the reality of it. I'm questioning how and why it was released, and I see a lot of money involved in it. I have many friends that are doctors. When I first got sick, I was able to call one of my doctors, and he prescribed ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and azithromycin, and it cleared it up for me. And you see things like how the media completely vilified and attacked people's intelligence that wanted to take ivermectin. And now, guess what? This week, the FDA is like, oh, yeah, you can prescribe ivermectin for COVID-19. Well, it's done. The whole thing, we've gone through the whole thing.
I have a question. Were you ever vaccinated?
I was, yes.
Okay. Because I've had a lot of people, I've been vaccinated. I work for a healthcare organization. I've been vaccinated probably 5 times now over the course.
Me too.
And I've had
vaccinated 5 times, caught COVID twice.
And I've been, you know, labeled by the anti-vaxxers as, you know, a stool, a tool, probably a stool too. You know, that I'm stupid, that I don't know, you know, and I mean, I think most of us grew up with vaccinations, you know, polio vaccination, you know, the flu vaccination. I mean, it's, you know, vaccinations are a proven technology. And in a rare show of political unity, Biden and Trump vaccinated, and both of them, evangelized the vaccine. And yet so many people think the vaccine is a hoax. Now, Chris, you know that the virus isn't a hoax. You've had it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you may have questions about where it came from, why it's here, etc. But the virus is real. Do you also believe the vaccine is real?
Well, I mean, I was injected with something 3 times. Well, I got the Johnson & Johnson first, was the first thing that was available. And to note, I was sick. I think I even talked to you on the phone, Monty. I was like, oh God, I'm sick as a dog. It made me very sick. First time I got the Pfizer one, it was fine. Second time, it made me really, really sick. I mean, it was like I got it. But I didn't think anything until the 4th time I had COVID of April this year. I thought I might die. It was bad, you know, okay, variants, possibility, whatever. I took the vaccine out of abundance of caution for my wife, who's immune compromised and is suffering from Lyme disease and severe neurological issues. And I took the advice of the doctors treating her. You know, I think what bothers me is people that are hesitant or choose not to. They get vilified. And like what you were saying, Tyson, people in that community get, you know, they can be mean as hell. You know, it's like everybody going after each other. Like, look, it's a personal choice. Let people do what they want. But
When
see,
did
and
we
that's another
become?
thing.
When did we become so polarized? Do you remember
social
When
media.
Donald Trump got elected? When
Well,
Donald
no,
Trump got elected.
it was before that. It was before that. It was social media. Social media has, and
Yes.
they came out and said it. Algorithms in social media and Facebook and Instagram,
And they
all
steer
the
us into echo chambers.
yeah, they steer us into echo chambers
Steer us and divide us.
everybody that worked for Facebook, not everybody, but a ton of the people that developed these algorithms have come out and warned us about this. There's a great documentary.
It's a documentary on Netflix.
Yeah,
I live in a
Netflix documentary.
conservative town. I live in a conservative town, really, you know, and I'm a Democrat, but I live in a conservative town. And 20 years ago, you know, the ire would not have been, you know, are you Republican or Democrat? It would have been you're gay, right? That would have been my big, you know, people would have been prejudiced, whatever. Today, they couldn't give a shit if I was gay. They care that I'm a Democrat. That is their pain point with me. Oh, I don't care that you're gay, but you're a fucking Democrat.
Okay, the documentary.
When did we get there?
Yeah, the documentary on Netflix is called "The Social Dilemma." Absolutely worth watching. Why America?
That'll send chills down your spine. It's creepy.
It's so polarized. Also, I wanted to get into. There's the only place that you can see it. This is a video, actually a movie that Chris shared with me that I'd love to be able to put up on the screen if I could. But it's called outoftheshadows.org. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe so. You can find it on Rumble. YouTube banned it.
Yeah, YouTube banned it, but outofshadows.org.
Out of shadows.
Shadows.
.com.
.com.
I'll double check.
I think also a nice little introduction to, you know, some of the creepy spiritual power players behind Hollywood, and a couple of these you know, high-rising stuntmen you know, started to see and look around and go to parties that they were invited to and see some of the creepy stuff that some of these bad actors in Hollywood participate in. And it's a nice little introduction into some of the truths behind how disgusting of an environment Hollywood is.
It is outofshadows.org. Yeah.
Outofshadows.org. And I'm also not saying that all of Hollywood and all of filmmaking is evil. I'm not. And I'm not trying
and
to.
I'm not either. I mean,
you know,
I obviously have friends in the industry. Mine is one of them.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends. You know, Jim Caviezel is a good friend.
Yeah, and
and
filmmaking itself is a beautiful thing, and if we could get some of the, you know, the elite and super rich money behind war films and behind a lot of the what is the intentions behind some of these big power player and elite corporations, when elite money and corporate money mix with artists and storytelling and using one of the biggest, actually the biggest propaganda machine we have, which is film.
Social engineering. Yep.
Yeah, you end up with a really dangerous concoction. So
and I'll add to that, Manu. You guys should watch a film called Wag the Dog. Dustin Hoffman and was it
De Niro?
Yeah. And that movie perfectly lays out how we get manipulated by the media and the government. It's obviously a fictional scenario, but the way that it happens is pretty much to the T. And Red Baron was also asking, I am on IMDb, but there's a lot of Chris Gilberts or Christopher Gilberts. But yeah, I'm there.
And just to tell you, Chris Gilbert is you know, a producer, and you know, I don't actually like to, you know, just share, because then Chris gets attacked. You know,
well, I'm not credited on Out of Shadows, by the way, because Jim was introduced to me by a mutual friend a couple years after the film was made, and Jim came to me asking me to help him get the film distributed.
Yeah, and Chris is a player behind the scenes more than he is a producer, etc. So you know, I don't. When I bring my friends on that work in the system, just because you can't maybe find their IMDb doesn't mean that they haven't been toying around helping some of their friends' movies get what Chris did for Sound of Freedom is help it get distribution through some of the channels that he could help them get distribution on. And I want to say hats off to you, because the distribution of that movie has been amazing. And nobody thought people were going to see it, especially with how hard it was attacked. And now it's made, it's in 7 theaters here in Colorado Springs, where I'm sitting at the moment.
I think the last numbers I saw were 168 million, and I wasn't even sure if we would make 30. That's how well it's done.
Yeah.
And I don't see a penny from the film, by the way.
Yeah.
I did this out of an act of love and friendship for Jim.
Cool.
Just getting the word out.
So we've got one more question from the divine Chris Leftwich. So
There's our Chris.
He's muted.
Who's now frozen and muted.
He's been popping in and out. Some connection issues.
he needs to get his tinfoil hat out, because he's going to say something. They already know what he's going to
Oh,
say.
you're muted, Chris.
I think he's
have to
frozen.
unmute
He's got
your
a
mic.
bad connection. I hate that. I hate when that happens.
He's dropped about 5 or 6 times here in queue.
Yeesh.
They knew that I was going to call upon the Leftwich. Damn it, these things don't work like they said they would. Tinfoil hats don't.
Zach is also muted, so when he gets here, we won't hear you.
Actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because these actually do something. I'll talk about it later.
Oh, okay. What do the tinfoil hats help with?
It can actually block all kinds of different signals into your brain. Joe Rogan was pushing a project. I forgot what it's called, like something silly like the e-beanie or weenie beanie or something like that. But the human body is extremely susceptible to EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, microwaves, whatever. And we have a lot of heavy metals in our GMO foods, and nano-sized aluminum particles. And for whatever reason, the body likes to hold all that stuff in the brain. But heavy metals in the body in and of itself can be, lethal over time. But yeah, they're developing products that you wear on your head can protect you from EMF radiation.
Yeah, I was going to say, so can EMF radiation and other kinds of radiation at high levels can do heck a lot of damage to the body. I didn't know. What do they act like? A little Faraday cage or something?
It just shields you.
Shields you from their.
So you can ask the person that has a few radios about the electromagnetic spectrum. As a ham radio operator, I know a little bit about it. The foil acts as a Faraday cage. In fact, if you've ever seen chicken wire and stucco, how it has the chicken wire that they use the stucco. If you're ever in a house with one of those stucco chicken wire, very hard to get a cell phone signal out. Why? It acts like a Faraday cage.
Okay, so here's a couple things I want to say before we end the show. One, I don't think we got close to as deep as I wanted to get into this whole topic, and that's okay. We'll have another show another day. I also want to say that I think this was a great conversation, because all of us, are keenly aware of the issue of child sex trafficking, and I think at least everyone on the show is aware that it's fucking happening, and more needs to be done about it. Our guest Chris came on, who's one of my friends that's Christian, mostly right-wing Republican thought, conservative thought, and
I'm not a registered Republican anymore, by the way.
You're not.
I gave up.
I gave it up too. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that our whole system is bought, sold, and paid for by the elite. I do not trust the Republicans. I do not trust the Democrats. The only people that I vote for these days are independent parties where I believe in the person and I believe in what they're talking about and in their stances on particular issues. I think that we should chuck the whole two-party system and start voting for who we want instead of who our television programs
tells us to
vote for. So yeah, I'm neither either, but I do want to just make the point that I brought one of my great friends on who is, at least at one time, was a very right wing and still a very conservative thinker. And he still said, look, child trafficking is happening. It's not on one side of the aisle or the other. It's happening on all sides of the aisle. It's not a political issue. It's an issue of rich, perverted billionaires and rich, perverted people in general, and even some poor people that are caught up in this whole.
Well, the consumers of child pornography, by and large, the majority of them are, middle class or, upper middle class, doctors, lawyers, cops, teachers, pastors, therapists. I mean, it's everywhere. Truck drivers. It's just the consumer.
Chris,
like in this country, is the largest consumer of child porn and trafficked individuals, and that is.
I have a question for you, Chris. Would you permit? Because I'm asking for your permission for Manu to share your phone number with me, because later I do want to call you. I want to talk to you about this.
Yeah.
So interesting. And after the show's over, I want to ask. And
sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, Tyson's a good guy. And Chris is a good guy too. So that's all right with you, Chris. No problem.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, and man, I wish we had more time. We already went an hour overtime, but I'm just glad we got into the issue. I'm glad you came on, Chris. It was very interesting. We didn't get to all the videos, but I wanted to go out for anyone that's still listening, 46 minutes overtime, with this just short 10-minute video.
Sure.
Cassie, did you have it?
Yes, I do have it, actually.
All right. So just watch this with an open eye and just think about all the kids that you've seen, in Hollywood and what's happened while you watch this video. It's not any hard evidence, but it will show you
how easy it is to get canceled on YouTube.
Yes.
Yeah. Did they?
I've had so many videos deleted from YouTube.
We still have check marks across the board, so
yeah.
So far so good.
Well, wait a second.
I think this clip will be fine. You'll be fine.
Is this video that we're about to show canceled from YouTube?
Oh
no,
it shouldn't be.
No.
Okay, and there's this one guy in this video that has his arms around all these young kids that have had so much problems in their older life. That I want to know who that guy is. You don't know who that guy is, do you?
We got to find out who that guy is.
Yeah, we got to find out who that guy is. So if anybody knows, contact what's our email? dangerousthoughts@gmail.com or
dangerousthoughtshow@gmail.com.
dangerousthoughtshow@gmail.com. Please tell us who this guy is if you know this creepy creep that's in this video. And thanks for keeping an open mind, and everybody, thanks for wearing your tinfoil hats and coming on to Dangerous Thoughts. We'll be back next week. I think our guest is a friend of mine, Thomas McCarthy, musician in a great band from back in the day, and his girlfriend, who is also a wonderful musician. And the week after, we'll have Corin Nemec on, talking about the history of corruption in American government and finance, etc. The Forever War is the title.
Jekyll
of
Island. Corin and I have gone back and forth about all that stuff. I love talking to him about that.
Well, come back on the show. We'll have you on. Just if you want to come on and talk, just write Subscript Pirate a message on X, Twitter, and we'll bring you on the show, and you and Corin can go at it.
Man.
All right, let's play the video, and we'll see you guys all next week.
What is happening in Hollywood? What is happening in Hollywood? Maybe the environment is a little sick.
Just, my grandma's sitting here and my mom's here, and I go home to my 7 dogs, and if I didn't have that anymore, it'd just be really hard.
Sick.
Well, Pizzagate, it became a major story weeks ago. Sick.
You know, all those things they were saying about rock and roll in the early days, saying, oh, it's going to subvert our youth, it's going to make them all want to have sex, it's going to make them all go crazy.
Sick.
They were right.
Sick.
Right.
Sick.
In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king.
They were right.
Hello. Ew. Strawberry.
Sick.
I'm embarrassed. Can we stop this?
Sick. Maybe the environment is a little sick.
I can't move.
There was a time when I was alone, nowhere to go and no place to call home.
Paralyzed.
My only friend was the man in the moon, and even sometimes he would go away too. Then one night as I closed my eyes, I saw a shadow flying high. He came to me with the sweetest smile, told me he wanted to talk for a while. He said, Peter Pan, that's what they call me. I promise that you'll never be lonely. And ever since that day,
it was here that the first halting steps toward mind control began.
I am a lost boy from Neverland, usually hanging out with Peter Pan. And when we're bored we play in the woods, always on the run from Captain Hook. Run, lost boy, they say to me, away from all of reality.
I get very anxious. I don't know if that happens to you, but it's just something about being in front of that many people.
Heart pounding?
Yeah, I guess I black out. I never really remember how an interview went or how, you know.
So you won't remember this interview in about 5 minutes?
Probably I'll black it out.
So I can ask anything or say
you want.
anything. Wow.
To your beautiful destiny, as we soared above the town that never loved me, I realized I finally had a family. Soon enough we reached Neverland. Peacefully my feet hit the sand, and ever since that day, I am a lost boy from Neverland, usually hanging out with Peter Pan. And when we're bored we play in the woods, always on the run from Captain Hook.
The drug abuse definitely contributed to Michael's decline, but a lot of people do drugs. They don't go around killing people and chopping them up, throwing them into rivers.
Away from all of reality.
This is the Desmond is Amazing episode.
Our special guest, the amazing Desmond, all the way from Brooklyn. Drove through rush hour traffic to get
Lost
here.
boys like me, and lost boys like me are free.
Knocked out in minutes, and victims don't know what happened to them. This has happened in Utah, and some are blaming Rohypnol, otherwise known as roofies.
Peter Pan, Tinkerbell, Wendy, darling, even Captain Hook, you are my perfect storybook. Neverland, I love you so, you are now my home, sweet home forever. I love you at last, and for always I will sing.
What has this world come to? It's come to a world where drag kids actually exist.
And people do ketamine on a couch.
In the woods, always on the run from Captain Hook. Run, run, lost.
No genders. You can be male, female, any or none.
Away from all of reality. You are free.
At 10 years old, my next guest is the star of the #1 movie in the country today. He plays the boy in Home Alone.
Neverland is home to lost boys like me, and lost boys like me are free.
I can destroy you right now, and you know it.
Corey, I'm sitting right here.
I don't need to do that. I don't have to do that.
Corey, I'd love to see you even attempt to do something like that.
Are you kidding me?
Do I look like I'm kidding you right
You're
now?
an easy target, bro.
I'm right here. Let's do this. I'm right here. Hit me with the hardest bull you got.
Now, why would I want to try and hurt you?
Corey, you opening up to the world about me having a knife in my pocket, and the reason I wear this, man, is like to cover up some scars I have, because like I used to cut into myself, because it's a way to feel, I hear. And like mentioning that, you just ripped the envelope, man. I'll go you one better. You let me get around in my life, man, raped, so to speak, when I was about 14 and a half, and I'm saying this right now, by the guy you still hang out with, and tell me I'm 14 and a half, take responsibility. You know exactly what I'm talking about. What'd you do, man, when you saw that going down when I was 14 to me? What'd you do? You knew about it. Besides being his best friend. What'd you do? What'd you do? Tell us what you did, man.
I believe I
Lines
was...
of cocaine with me. God bless you.
You want to talk about the truth? Okay, well, then let's talk about the truth. I was being molested at the same time by somebody else. What'd you do? What'd you do?
Talk to you about it.
You talked to me about it?
Yeah, sure. You told me while I was sleeping, this happened, this happened. I'm like, dude, you weren't sleeping? Yeah, I was sleeping. Tried to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Were you sleeping?
I was awake, Corey. I was very aware of what's going on with me. So who might take this to go?
Okay.
Would be the probably smartest thing to do.
You know what?
Corey,
you want to put all that shit on the table? You want about all that?
Put you in the ground, kid.
Yeah, okay.
Fox News alert for you right now. Fox News has confirmed actor Corey Haim has died in Los Angeles. He was 38 years old.
What?
I can't move. You're paralyzed.
What is happening in Hollywood? What is happening in Hollywood?
Film star River Phoenix died early today outside a popular West Hollywood nightclub.
Johnny renamed the night spot the Viper Room. On Halloween night 1993, actor River Phoenix showed up at the club.
A Black Sabbath is a witch's Sabbath. It comes 8 times a year. Halloween is Shayham. It's more or less their big party day. Now, if they're in the human sacrifice, they also do human sacrifice at the time.
It'll be hard for me and you to talk about theory since neither of us know a thing about it.
Right, which is why it's good that I should be interviewing you on this occasion.
Yeah, but see, we know about a lot more other cosmic things that are floating around in the universe and in this very room today, things that are circling around, that hopefully we'll be able to be vehicles for these things and let them come pouring through our nostrils. That hopefully we'll be able to be vehicles for these things and let them come pouring through our nostrils.
Maybe the environment is a little sick.
Lindsay Lohan has been a star since the age of 11. According to Lohan, she also attended AA meetings to maintain her sobriety.
I'm gonna continue doing movies, but I'm gonna be a normal kid for a while. I'm gonna be a normal kid for a while.
But Lohan's clubbing made headlines again when the actress wrecked her car Memorial Day weekend 2007.
But hopefully we'll be able to be vehicles for these things and let them come pouring through our nostrils.
As much fun as I'm having here at Walt Disney World in Florida. It's the home of 100 years of magic. 100 years of magic. Magic.
Come to this happy place. Welcome.
And where are seemingly innocent pop stars ultimately leading their young, impressionable fan base? Here we see Britney Spears wearing the number of the Antichrist, 666, on her shirt. God's word, the Bible, states that one day every nation, kindred, and tongue will have to take the number of the beast or the mark of the beast on their right hand or their forehead.
Come to this happy place. Welcome. Happy place. Happy place. Happy place.
Bono actually would hope and wants to turn the world on to the movies, which are propaganda movies, of the Satanist Kenneth Anger. Bono sees it, speaking of Zoo TV Network, as a window for the world to the films of Kenneth Anger. Part of America's dilemma is its TV, because as a mirror, it's a pretty distorted one. I mean, where can you see Kenneth Anger's films in the United States? Just who is Kenneth Anger, who Bono is, promoting and wanting to turn so much of the world onto?
Sick.
Nowhere to go and no place to
I raped him an American.
My only friend was
in my hotel for doing what?
sometimes he would go
Yo, you really got the cuffs on me.
Then one night as I closed my eyes, I saw a shadow.
I'm not doing that.
I'd like to think of something I never thought before. If it doesn't happen right away, I'll think a little more.
What is happening in Hollywood?
I'm a phenomenon.
His number is 666.
You're a busy girl. You've got a CD out. You've got a clothing line. You're an ambassador, right? And I don't know how you have time to date Justin Bieber.
Who in their right
I can't help but to think, am I back online? Can people hear me?
You are back.
So, all right. So after watching that, I can't help but to think of all my friends that I've known and loved over the years in Hollywood. Jonathan Brandis killed himself. Heath Ledger killed himself. Brittany Murphy dead at 26 or something, like 25, something like that. Maybe 27. Maybe she was part of the club. Met this really weird dude and ended up dead in his apartment. Brad Renfro ended up dead. And one of the people I love the most in this world's bedroom. all these kids that come out to this town, and suddenly they're presented with fame and fortune and access to high profile drugs and older people. I remember going around, you know, producery parties in Hollywood with cocaine on plates and, you know, different types of drugs thrown everywhere. And don't get me wrong, I'm an advocate for legalizing drugs. So I'm not taking any stances here, but all I'm saying is that there is something very sick in Hollywood, and there is something very sick that leads all these kids down these dark paths that, you know, they're young and they end up dead, or they end up drug addicted, or they end up lost. You know, Corey Haim and Corey Feldman. My manager right now represents Corey. I don't know him very well, but I knew Corey Haim a little bit. And he was obviously raped when he was a young man by some powerful people in that town. And, you know, it deserves a looking into. At the very least, it deserves our thoughts and those kids, you know, like Brad Renfro was a beautiful talent and played some incredible roles. And the Academy didn't even put his picture up that year when he died. And, you know, he was a legitimate movie star for some time there. So there definitely is something sick going on behind the scenes in that town. And I'm not naming names or because I don't know them, you know. I can think of a few times in my experience growing up there from you know, early 17 on, where some creepy things happened to me that were uncalled for. That I was 17 going on 25 at that time. You know, I ate acid the first time I was 11. So I was well prepared for some of the icky that came my way. But you can't help but to watch that video and sort of, you know, just realize that there's something sick in our culture. And you know, and it deserves a thought, and it deserves, you know, those poor kids that have lost their lives. Brittany Murphy was such a beautiful woman. She was such a beautiful person. And she got sucked into this dark hole that we call the entertainment business, and lost her life. And I want it to stop happening. So I don't know how to make it stop happening. I don't know who the power players are. I don't know whether it's just something that's sick in our culture, that kids get money and they get wrapped up in power and their egos at that age, and they get lost. And maybe it's a bit of everything, but I hope someday we can get down to what we can do to help these kids instead of leave them abandoned. Because, you know, I lost my young career in Hollywood because I got addicted to pain pills and substances in my early years of doing Star Trek, and had to take a 7-year break there to get my mind straight and get my body off of them. So, you know, whether there was some dark forces or satanic spirits or dark players that put me in that position, you know, I have to take some responsibility in myself for the position that I got put in. But definitely the people that invented Oxycontin should pay some prices, because that drug was on the streets when I was 17, 18 years old. And all the kids were taking it, and a ton of those kids were young Hollywood kids that ended up on heroin and ended up dead. I also would love to know who that creepy guy with the glasses that's smiling with all those children.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Who is that guy? So if anybody knows who that guy is, yeah, send us an email at dangerousthoughtshow@gmail.com. Wild topic tonight, and you know, we went an hour and 15 minutes overtime just because it's such an interesting topic and has so many sides. So I just want to make sure also, and not to be a pussy, because I'm really confused about this whole subject, but me and Tyson don't have any agenda with this show tonight. We just brought this topic up because it's interesting. I at least certainly believe that child sex trafficking is happening and something needs to be done about it. More resources need to be allocated to help these kids that are getting snatched off the streets. Anything deeper than that? Interesting conversation. Anything you want to say, Tyson, before we actually?
No, I think you're exactly correct, and it breaks my heart that this is happening, and it's been happening throughout time immemorial, right? This isn't an affliction of the 21st century. It's happened in the 20th, the 19th, the 18th. It's horrible, and whatever we can do to bring awareness, and I think that really is the key, right? It's awareness. It's making parents aware. And sadly, it's needing to have those conversations with children. Parents have to talk to their young children, 8, 9, 10 years old, and say, look, there are bad people out there that want to touch you inappropriately. And, I don't think enough of that conversation is happening. I think people are so stuck on they're too young to understand this. I can't have that conversation yet. I can't talk to them about this. And when there is a lack of information, that's where predators thrive.
Yeah.
That's why they're doing it in schools over here.
Yeah. There's how to protect yourself in schools in England. There's like classes for the kids.
There's been a lot of controversy about it, but basically, I mean, all school. I mean, I imagine they do in America from a certain age do like sex ed classes, and they do that in high school here, but they've started doing a different form of like sex ed, so to speak, for the younger children, but it is all about like no-go areas and reinforcing the not speaking to strangers thing. And
remember the stranger danger?
Yes, exactly. The stranger danger, or always stick with your parents, and like the no-go areas on your body and things like that, and that's taught across here in schools. I mean, I don't know if all schools are doing it, but I know of a few that certainly do it. So I assume that it's across the country. But I think that's another good way of getting awareness out there. If schools were to do it and be like, right, these are the no-go areas of your body, stranger danger, and all this lot. And I do think that because when children go to a learning environment, their brains are programmed more to absorb things. So if that's brought into an educational environment, they will absorb it better.
Especially kids in 5th and 6th grade that are 10 and 11 and 12 years old. There was almost no kids that I can think of back when I was a kid that weren't ready for that conversation. And even if they weren't ready for that conversation, forcing them to have it might bring them home to their parents to be like, whoa, some crap I heard today in class, and maybe those parents would do a better job of
How many times have you heard the story of the preacher's daughter, right? The preacher's daughter. Well, who's the one girl that never got that talking to because it was inappropriate, or and it's always the preacher's daughter. Like, you always hear this, right? The preacher's daughter. Well, you need to have those conversations. Yes, they're hard. Yes, you might even feel to some degree they're inappropriate. But if you don't have those conversations with your kids, I guarantee somebody else will.
Yeah, no doubt. The preacher's daughter, when I was 13, 14, whatever your sophomore, your freshman year of high school was, she swooped me right up and taught me all about sex. So
right. Oh, you remember when you were in school, right? When you were in school and you were in 4th grade, 5th grade, you knew exactly what sex was. You knew, right? Now your parents, you pussyfooted around your parents, and your parents might have pussyfooted around you, and nobody really talked about it. But in 3rd grade, 4th grade, you knew what was up. You knew. Yeah. But there were details like STDs and lots of things that maybe you didn't know about.
And my whole culture was very, at least as far as safe sex. We were the end of the AIDS kids, so we were very safe when it came to sex, even though we were 13 and 14 and having it. And I think I was 13 and 14 having sex because the senior preacher's daughter swooped me up and enlightened me, which makes me think that she might have had something happen to her. I don't know. I haven't talked to her in 30 years, so I'm not going to speak on it. But great show. Wow, an hour and 21 minutes overtime. So no overtime tonight, everybody. We're not going to do an overtime. The show was an overtime in its own right. And we'll see you guys here next week with Tommy McCarthy, and the week after that with Corin Nemec. If you want to come on the show and you want to speak with me and Tyson or our guest, contact Subscript Pirate at X, Twitter, and let him know that you want to come on.
Or join our Discord.
Or join our Discord. How do you join our Discord?
See, we got to grow our Discord. That's the thing is, I have a link that I could put up, and it looks like hot garbage, discord.com/GG something or another. But if we have some followers, fans, friends, family that want to help us with the show, that is where we do it. That is where we talk about discussions that we're going to have in future shows. We drop the links to come on our show, like you saw Katie and Zach and Chris on here briefly. If we grow that, eventually we can have our own, Discord Dangerous Thoughts or whatever server.
All right. Well, let's figure out a place to put the hot garbage link. Can't we make the link a little bit shorter or some way? Don't they have those bit.ly links or those other links? Is it just a long link?
No, it's short. It's just like, all right, it's a new one every time I share it. So that's one thing.
Yeah.
So if I were to share this right now, I can create a link that doesn't have a expiration or anything, and it's not for it's like a permanent link for membership. I can post it somewhere, but it's going to be discord.gg/ this one right here is no limit link 5FQE965T.
Okay.
Now, can
So
they?
there you go.
Now, can they? If they join Discord, can they search for our group? Is it a public?
If you search for Dangerous Thoughts, I believe you should find it. I don't know.
There you go. There you
I don't
go.
know how you do that.
Yeah, I'm
sure there's a search.
Guy.
I actually think so. What you're saying is Discord should be the place for the Dangerous Thoughts family that wants to not only participate in discussions, but also participate in the creation of the show. Let's get them there. Let's get them talking. I think let's put up a link that if that's a link that will never
There
expire.
is a link that should work that will never expire in my Twitter profile. So if you go there and click it, it should work. If it doesn't work, let me know.
Put it, and we got a little space in here with Tyson's beautiful little backdrop here. We can find a little spot for that.
Speaking of Tyson's beautiful backdrop, I apologize. Halfway through the show, my dog was in the shot, and she spent at least half an hour chewing her ass. That was not intentional, and I am so sorry.
I was really having to try hard not to laugh because of the seriousness of the discussion.
That was scripted.
Yeah. A couple of people commented on it. I thought it was pretty funny too.
And then she was digging around and going round in circles.
She was just chewing her ass right in the background. I'm like, oh my God, you stupid dog.
I don't care what you humans have to deal with. I'm having fun. All right.
She wanted to show you up, Tyson. She wanted to embarrass you in front of the world.
Nothing's better than that.
I just dropped a link that should work on our YouTube and on your Facebook.
All right, cool. And I also will do a better job to keep our show less than 3 hours long. But I don't know what, tonight just it got away from me. So I also thought it was a good show. So I hope people watch. I hope people share. If anybody's left listening tonight, share the program every Sunday night at Dangerous Thoughts on YouTube and at Monuente Reme on all of my social medias, at Monuente Reme at YouTube as well. And we're on Spotify tonight as well for the first time. So the show is growing. Yeah,
Not live,
but we will.
We are on Spotify.
Are we gonna?
Episode is for now.
Yeah, cool. So we're gonna get on the podcast very soon, and we have more discussions to have in the Discord and privately. So see everybody. Good night. See you next week. Bye bye. Thanks, Chris.